In this demo, I'm going to show you CommunityViz TimeScope Wizard, which gives me the ability to look at changes in the built environment over time. The particular example I have here is a proposed neighborhood development, but I can apply TimeScope to any vector feature layer in my analysis. The concept here is that these colored points are future proposed houses, mixed-use buildings, and commercial buildings. And what I want to look at is how they might be built out over a period of time. I can demonstrate that by changing what year it is using this variable assumption slider bar. You can see that it's currently set to the last year in my study, 2040, but if I move it back to, say, 2025 and apply this year change, you can see that only a few of the buildings have been built. And those are the ones that are closest to the existing buildings in my analysis. Moving the date on the time slider is just one way to visualize these changes. I can also use the TimeScope Animator to see a growth animation over the full duration of my project's future. Here's a chart showing my growth over the whole period. But the time slider is not just affecting the buildings in my map, it's also affecting everything associated with the buildings. For example, as I scroll down through these charts of common impacts, which happen to have been generated by the Common Impacts Wizard, but you could have modeled your own, you can see that the impacts associated with the buildings have updated. Changing to the year 2030, there will be fewer buildings and therefore less annual impacts. Setting up a TimeScope analysis is relatively straightforward. I choose the TimeScope icon from my toolbar and I say I want to work on my buildings layer. I'm going to look at the years 2020 to 2040. And for this demo, I'm just going to do a fairly simple linear growth, adding 20 to 30 buildings per year, using different growth rates for each scenario. Build order can be random, it can be based on underlying attributes or layers. What I actually did here, to make it easy to understand, was use proximity to another layer. I built out based on how close these buildings are to the existing buildings within my study area. You might do something more sophisticated, combining factors with distance to town centers or roads, or a score based on a set of gravity models. In these last few screens, I have some output options. And then the wizard sets up all of the components for me. You're watching this rerun as a real-time update. It's pretty fast, especially since I'm working with a small-sized project, but TimeScope can also run quickly on larger datasets. TimeScope capability is a very powerful tool and can be applied throughout an analysis to as many layers as you want and built into as many impact calculations as you want. So this has been a short introduction to the TimeScope decision tool in CommunityViz Scenario 360.